Tamil Nadu has resisted the juggernaut of the RSS.
RSS even now is perceived and is constrained by its Brahminical identity as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. There's been an entire faith tradition, the Saiva tradition, which is a very Tamil tradition. The Vaishnavite Tamil tradition has also been very, very strong for hundreds of years. Now, this is also something that the RSS has never been able to contend with. So there's a Tamil Sufi tradition. There's a strong Tamil Muslim tradition, right? And goes back to linguistic affinity. We are one of the highest in honor killings in this country.
Tamil Nadu had the highest attacks on Christians.
Bluntly put, it has been an utter failure of
the Dravidian.
The early 20th century, there was this entire Tani Tamil Iyakam. The idea is that was to remove the Sanskrit words from Tamil. Interestingly, this Tani Tamil Iyakam has also been a kind of a resistive thing, where the RSS has been able to get, say, some influence. The Coimbatore, Tirupur, Erode section,
which has also seen the riots.
A lot of the RSS entry there came from the owners of these businesses and these factories. Carnatic music is symbolic of something. For the RSS, it is symbolic of their puritanical
and cultural superiority.
Exactly. There was no one classical. There was this world. I've read the Nati Shastra. I've seen the Dattilam, which was 2 centuries before Common Era. There was no one. There were always multiple streams.
It is that multiplicity that I think threatens the RSS most of all.
Tamil people already have a language to resist because of their history.
Salam, Namaste, Zindabad. This is Harsh Mander. I'm back with another episode in our series which I'm doing with Himal, Southasian, called Partitions of the Heart. In the second season, we're looking at 100 years of the RSS and the Hindutva ideology. I'm enormously privileged to have with me for this conversation T M Krishna. T M Krishna's soulful music, his innovative takes on Carnatic music are legendary. But for me, Krishna is much more than that. He's, I think, one of India's most thoughtful public intellectuals, whose reflections on caste and class and inequality and injustice are very thoughtful. I always look out and listen carefully when he speaks, and I'm grateful, Krishna, that you've agreed to join us in this conversation. The RSS is completing 100 years, and as I often reflect, there's a cruel irony of history that Vijayadashmi, when they celebrate the starting of the RSS, this year falls on October 2nd. So that is a really cruel sort of irony of history, because studying the literature and the practice of the RSS, I found that their favorite enemy is India's Muslims, but very close to that is Mahatma Gandhi, and you know, it's been consistent, and I think they've tried to thinly disguise it in more recent years, but the disguise is very thin, and either they're trying to reimagine Gandhi into something that he wasn't at all. But there's been a trajectory of the RSS, and we tend to think of it largely in the context of North and Eastern India. But the story of the RSS in the south of India is something that we think about and understand much less, those of us who don't live in South India. And I thought there was nobody better than you to talk about the journey of the RSS and its impacts in southern India, recognizing also that southern India is very diverse. You can talk about Tamil Nadu, you talk about Kerala, you talk about Karnataka, you talk within Karnataka of coastal Karnataka, and you talk about Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So with all the generalizations and perhaps with a greater focus on Tamil Nadu, would you just like to just speak at length about how you see the journey of the RSS and its impacts in southern India?
Well, I'd first like to say it's truly an honor and privilege to have this conversation with you, Harsh. You're somebody that I think we've all looked up to for many, many years.
Yeah.
So just the sensitivity with which you engage with the planet, if I can use that as a large term. So thank you very much. I'd like to respond to the irony first.
Yeah.
Maybe the irony is saying something to us that it falls on October 2nd.
Yeah.
Maybe it is, for me, Gandhi, beyond everything that is written about him, spoken about him, I think the one thing that the RSS was threatened by is his creativity.
Okay, yeah. And his humor, I think.
Yeah, we don't discuss just the creative spirit of Gandhi. I feel that this, maybe the artist in me
Right.
looks at that. Because the creative spirit is of tremendous courage. There's no other way to be creative. The creative spirit automatically challenges norms, not as a constructed method, but as something that it sees close to the other word you says as injustice.
Yeah. Can I stop you, because I'm really glad that you use the word courage when you speak about Gandhi, because the critique of the RSS and Hindutva is largely that his non-violence was a sign of feminine weakness, and it's quite the opposite of it. And the word, I think Gandhiji, just as Ambedkar represents for me the idea of radical equality, Gandhiji really represents to me the idea of radical love. Love that is so, so profound and so courageous that you're willing to give your life, to go to prison for that love. And he gave his life. I mean, his last battles were for the rights of India's Muslims to be equal citizens at a time when 1 million people were slaughtering each other.
So, I mean, that's why I mean, for me, Gandhi was, that's how I see him. And maybe it's the artist in me who sees the courage and the creativity and who sees the ability to be so acutely aware.
And vulnerable.
And vulnerable. The two are always together.
Right.
Is something extraordinary, truly extraordinary. To Tamil Nadu is very interesting. I agree with you. It's something, I'm speaking not as a historian, but just as a person who observes ourselves as Tamil people or whatever. It's fascinating on how RSS has struggled, continues to struggle. And you start wondering
Struggle
in Tamil Nadu. There's no doubt. The fact is, RSS even now is perceived and is constrained by its Brahminical identity as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. I think there can be no debate to that. Now, I'd like to see this in shall we say, in 3 streams. Okay. First, we forget one very important thing that I'll come to caste, but before I come to caste, is that faith and the Hindu faith and language is very intertwined in Tamil Nadu. For centuries. So whether it's the Shaiva tradition or the Vaishnava tradition, Shaiva, the Tevaram, the Tiruvasakam, all go back to 7th, 8th century. Or Divya Prabandha, the Vaishnavite tradition. Tagore was influenced by the Vaishnavite tradition. You have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also supposed to be influenced by that whole Divya Prabandha tradition. All is very, very Tamil.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so this intermingling of linguistic identity and faith is a very important marker in Tamil Nadu.
And art, no?
Yes. I mean, it goes together.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want to just talk about this specifically. It's very fascinating. So, are there Sanskrit words in these texts? Of course there are. But there's something distinct about Tamil as a language also. Now, unlike Kannada, Malayalam or Telugu, where even a Sanskrit word, when it is adapted into those languages, remains very close to its Sanskrit sonic sense.
Absolutely. Malayalam is supposed to be the closest to Sanskrit.
Yes. But even Telugu and Kannada have a lot of Sanskrit words which you can directly identify as Sanskrit like that. In Tamil, the Sanskrit words have come in, but they become a very different identity. Even if you didn't point out sometimes to somebody, they won't even know they are saying it. So Sanskrit and an anti-Sanskrit feeling, which is associated with a Brahminical caste group, is something that has been strong. But there's been an entire faith tradition, the Saiva tradition, which is a very Tamil tradition.
Okay.
Right? The Vaishnavite Tamil tradition has also been very, very strong for hundreds of years. Now, this is also something that the RSS has never been able to contend with, is that they have a Tamil identity which is very entrenched in also a Hindu faith identity.
Okay.
Whereas the RSS is always seen as a Vedic, as a Vedic
Hindu.
Hindu identity, right? So this tension exists. There's another thing that happened that we must keep in mind. So this is an old thing. There's another thing is that in the early 20th century, there was this entire Tani Tamil Iyakam. The idea is that was to remove the Sanskrit words from Tamil.
Yeah.
So there's this entire movement of saying we will create only Tamil words. It also went anti-English. Now that happens even now. For example, Twitter has a Tamil word. Facebook is called Muganul. It's very unusual. This happens in Tamil every day.
And Hindi, like they try to get out the Urdu words from here.
But this, interestingly, this Tani Tamil Iyakam has also been a kind of a resistive thing.
A subaltern.
Eggs for the RSS movements. So that was coupled with what you pointed to or hinted at, is the entire anti-caste Ayodhya Das or Periyar, the entire. So these two go together.
Right.
So you do have the Ayodhya Das, you have, of course, Periyar coming in, the anti-Brahminical movement. That
Anti-Brahmin movement.
Anti-Brahmin movement, and you also have it being about social justice. And this, so you have to remember that that's not in isolation. It goes back also to the Tamil identity, goes back also to faith, interestingly. Though Periyar was at the other side of that spectrum, it also goes to how Tamil is identified as
Hindus.
Tamil Hindu. I mean, this you will find even stronger if you go to, for example, Sri Lanka.
Okay.
The whole Shaiva tradition, Shaiva Siddhanta tradition, you will see they see it only as Tamil. They have nothing to do with the Vedic tradition there. So this has also been a problem for the RSS here, right? Along with Periyar's contribution. There's another thing.
Yeah, but just holding on to that before you go on. I think that one of the great challenges that the RSS has faced is that they want to imagine the RSS like an Abrahamic faith with a single with a single book, with a single deity, with a single set of practices. And the Hindu faith is completely different, and Tamil Nadu is what you're describing, that how do you, because then you have to talk about the other.
Yes.
And if we are so different in a myriad different ways, how do you then other the other?
Absolutely. And I think that the independence of the multiple, if you want to call it, the subaltern faith systems that have remained what they are, whether it's at the village level or, what we call Grama Devatas, as we say. And they've remained very strong. And though they may have been brought into what you could call the Hindu fold, they are still very Tamil.
Okay.
So, I used to recoil as far as Tamil nationalism happened. I just felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But then, and I've had debates with many historians about this for years, but I changed my opinion on that. Because I realized that
so it was a subaltern kind of expression, unlike the Hindu nationalism.
Exactly, right? Absolutely. Because I saw it as being, very parochial. I said, there's a problem here. There are elements to it which are, I still think,
parochial.
Yeah, parochial. I would use the word even violent at times. But like you said, there is a subaltern movement and a resistance and a holding on to something not for narrow reasons, but to see that there's this diversity, and that holding on has been tremendous in this day. That I think is special.
And the RSS has no space for those conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has no space. It has not even found its way into this Tamil universe. It has not been, it cannot. the problem is it cannot disown its Vedic obsession. It cannot, because it completely finishes its foundation. It can't disown all.
Project of homogenizing Hinduism disappears if you accept
Entirely, right? And so they don't know how to deal with the Tamil people. Yes, they have made inroads among other Brahminical castes, dominant caste groups, and that is natural in that sense, because aspiration model pushes people in social and religious behavior within, towards the direction of the Brahminical, and that they have. But beyond which is why their political wing, which is the BJP, if you can call them that, have also not been able to find. See, another thing, as far as Tamil people are concerned, all these are some Hindi, Sanskrit groups. Okay, they have, you may have 5 Tamil people in their thing, but in their brain, the trigger that you will get for a Tamil person is that, these are some Hindi walas, basically. Right?
And that's why the chauvinism you say here is a constructive kind of chauvinism.
Exactly.
Because it is in defense against Brahminical.
Absolutely. Which is why, I've kind of reconfigured my position on that, because I think there is something ethically important in taking that position. And the other thing is that Tamil people already have a language to resist because of their history.
And literally a language.
Literally, that's true.
Literally
a language to resist.
Right.
And I think that most other people don't have. So whether it is our faith tradition, whether it is rationalist tradition, whether it is our language identity, like you said, we have languages possibly to resist it. So nobody needs to search for something, In most other places, I think the struggle is we're searching for a way to resist, and here we don't.
And those forms of resistance which through the Bhakti and Sufi movements existed have got lost along the way, and you're struggling to reclaim them. Here they never got lost, is what you're saying.
Yes. And I think that has kept us, at least for now,
somewhat safe.
Somewhat safer, yes.
And yet I would, Tamil Nadu is a part of India that that from a distance I love and admire for precisely the reasons that you spoke. And yet in my work in recent years, the Karwane Mohabbat, where we try to reach out to families which have suffered from hate violence, Tamil Nadu was a place we didn't visit until people came to us and said, what is happening to Christians?
Yes.
That the attacks on Christians is some of the worst have happened in Tamil Nadu in recent years. And also anti-Dalit violence. I remember in this Germany, we went to a place near Madurai where it was really brutal, because all that the Dalits had done was to do a little well in life. They got into the army, they built a better home, and there was a massive slaughter there. So I wanted to sort of not challenge you, but to ask how has the Muslim is not a hate figure yet in Tamil Nadu, am I right?
Yes.
But in my interaction with Tamil Muslims, there is a sense of fear, even among them, because they see the attacks on Christians. And how so given what you've said now, do you have to change anything when you bring this reality?
Yes, I think there are two realities that have to be brought in this conversation. The one thing is, if there was a region, if I just go back to the RSS before I answer this question, where the RSS has been able to get, say, some influence.
Yes.
It would be the Coimbatore, Tirupur, Erode section.
Which has also seen the riots. And
yes. So you wonder why. So I was asking friends from the area, why? How has that happened? So there's an interesting observation that came from a friend of mine, and he said, that area for a long time has been very business intensive.
Okay.
And a lot of the businesses for a long time, even now I think, is owned by what we call the Seths, the Northerners, the Marwadis, right? Now, that they were the ones who were the owners.
Okay.
So their observation is that a lot of the RSS entry there came from the owners of these businesses and these factories.
Pretty much like Bengal. Bengal, again, it's the Marwadi
Exactly.
who is the
So
RSS.
the RSS entry, so I always wonder why in that section. I mean, like when I traveled there, my threats also happened in that area. So, and one of the things is, so it came top down. So it didn't come from what would be a groundswell from the working class, but it came from those who owned these businesses. And then what happens is that the powerful...
But they're non-Tamil.
Yes.
Okay.
But then what do? They start funding, say, building temples or processions or celebrating, say, Hindu festivals, within quotes, because that's not what they're exactly doing. And then what happens is that the other business houses who are Tamil and who are from dominant caste group start competing for this space of social and religious power.
But it's interesting, all over...
They're the Gaundars, for example.
All over India, the RSS has taken over Hindu festivals. And so now the Ram Leela and all of this is I used to love taking my daughter to the Ram Leelas and what. Now they're just places of RSS propaganda.
So the same thing has happened. So the dominant caste group there in that whole belt is the Gounder group. And so the Gounders are then, so there is a certain social capital, religious capital struggle happening between these ownerships. And then that gives RSS a kind of a place to do, which is why that space, that whole region, which is kind of bordering Kerala, has had more RSS influence than anywhere else. That is where Perumal Murugan lives, and that is where he was attacked by the artists. Now, you will have to now combine that with your other caste issue. I think one of the reasons that I think it's important that you brought the Christian and the Dalit element together, because I think they are seen to a large extent together in Tamil Nadu. And here, bluntly put, it has been an utter failure of
the Dravidian movement.
And it is, there can be no other explanation. We are one of the highest in honor killings in this country. A friend of mine,
honor killings, and in the year that we came, at least, Tamil Nadu had the highest attacks on Christians.
Yeah, they go together.
The country.
I was going to say, they go together. So, because a lot of the converts are considered Dalit Christians, and therefore, the evangelical groups are considered to be, for the words they use, forced conversions, etc. And then...
enemies of Hindus.
Exactly. So, the faith and the caste equation there is very closely linked. Now, I have a friend of mine, Evidence Kadir, who's done a lot of work with honor killings, where again you have the thing. I mean, he's fighting about 100 cases now in Tamil Nadu.
Wow.
So now, here is the biggest problem.
How do you reconcile it with everything you said first?
Remember, it's also in schools. We've had cases where you had children attacking their colleague because that Dalit boy did well in an examination, was academically good. So it's this violence against Dalits has seeped in at that level. It is not just adults now. It's children who are now participating. Now, first of all, you can't reconcile.
Is it new? Is it new?
No, it is not new. It has been accentuated maybe, or it can be the other way. Maybe we didn't know enough. We know more now. But the fact
the Dalit accepted it more now passively.
Absolutely. But this is the problem. The problem is that the Dravidian movement has not gone beyond saying we are against caste oppression coming from those with privileged caste. And these were mainly caste groups that were what you could call OBCs today, or the mid-sections. But the fact is, like Ambedkar said, caste is a compounded structure that works laterally and vertically. And enough work has not been done. In fact, there's been complete negligence of the violence that is perpetuated by the powerful caste groups on the multiple other caste groups, especially Dalit community. There's been negligence. There has also been a philosophical problem.
Negligence in terms of a silence and the absence of outrage. Is that what you're saying?
It's not just silence, structural. There has not been action. Now, for example, there is, I know there's been suggestion of a bill against violence against Dalit. It's there. The Chief Minister has received it more than a year and a half ago. Why is it so difficult for us to pass that bill? Which means that there is resistance to pass it among people in power. And I think we have to talk about it. We cannot ignore that fact.
But Krishna, from this journey, I mean, this is, I'm generalizing from a few days I spent just looking at hate violence in Tamil Nadu. and I have not been able to figure things out because I had a different imagination of this state. Small, I mean, we have this. I learnt about it much that you have this almost startup kind of Christianity, which is not not linked to a large church like the Catholic Church. I just feel that some miracles happened, and in my family, and so I convert and I create a little chapel of my own. Those are the ones that are most vulnerable to
Yes.
attack.
Because those generally are people who belong to vulnerable caste groups.
Yeah.
And even an assertion of faith or assertion of directionality
Is seen as a resistance.
Exactly. And is it seen as mobility?
Okay, as
See,
well.
that's a very important thing. Mobility is resisted.
And I think that the Dalit and the Christian, you understand the violence because both of them are
Absolutely.
Rising up.
Exactly. So, and I think that this coupling of the two, and this is something that the RSS keeps trying to tap into here in Tamil Nadu, right? That they do. They try tapping into that. But this is, and I think there is, let's also look at it this way in terms of a Dravidian ideology. There, honestly, there has been no progress in a philosophical development beyond Periyar.
Right.
And I think that's a huge failure.
Yes. The outpouring of original social political
There is
thinking,
absolutely
ethical
no,
thinking.
bluntly,
Yeah.
there is no original social, political, ethical thinking in Tamil Nadu beyond
Periyar.
they're using Periyar or any other or beyond Periyar. Beyond that, there is in political arena or in political thought, there has been none. And this is a tremendous failure. And I think there's resistance to that also. Because if you want to do that, you have to address exactly what we're discussing, which is Dalit violence, Dalit empowerment, violence against Christian Dalits. All this has to be addressed.
And social mobility.
Exactly.
Yes.
And there has been a resistance towards even thinking in that manner. In private gathering, there is this whole thing saying, we have to do something. It's not just doing, you have to think differently. You have to construct a different frame to address this.
But isn't this then exactly the fissure that the RSS is using to make its entry?
It is, like I said, this is what the RSS is trying to tap into.
Right.
But because of our history, it has been much harder for them to make that entry directly. Right? So, but as you say, a decade from now, I don't know. If we have this conversation 10 years later, we may be actually saying different things, and which is why I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I'm really concerned because, and not just because RSS will come in, but this is a reality. Every day we hear reports now of violence against that. Every day.
But Krishna, in your own personal journey, I think the fact that you've tried to not just reimagine, but re-practice Carnatic music as something that includes the disadvantaged caste, isn't that the principal reason that you face hostility?
Yeah. But I do want to say one thing before I address it, if you don't mind. See, there's one thing that is always thrown at, people like me when we discuss, say, caste violence. And the one thing that will always be said is, okay, have you ever heard of a Brahmin killing somebody?
Okay.
We have, but nevertheless, killing somebody because their child married a
Mahatma Gandhi and
I was just going to say there's we know one. But the question asked on caste, like, have you heard of a Brahmin killing somebody because they married that? See, I think this needs to be addressed strongly, because the fact is, privilege to a large extent, caste privilege, allows you the space to not actually physically pick up the gun or the knife.
Yeah.
Because
the RSS rarely participates in communal violence.
But you create an intellectual and an emotional environment of hate that the person who is lower in the social hierarchy picks it for you. This is not very different from white violence, say, in the US. You're never going to have somebody in New Hampshire picking up the gun and shooting somebody. You're going to have a cop who's going to pick up the gun. And so we are actually accentuating this hate through so many other methods that cannot be ignored.
No, just a few days ago, as part of this conversation, I was talking about the role of the RSS in mass communal violence, and this was the interesting point that came up. They actually don't. They
Yeah.
instigate the violence, but they're never there to spill the blood.
Exactly, and that also tells you about their sense of caste
Yes.
to a large extent.
It's the Bajrang Dal who is, and so on, which do,
Absolutely.
which are the disadvantaged castes which go and
I think it's a very important point that has to be said, that they allow themselves at distance by just perpetuating hate now in so many other ways, that the work, so to speak, is done by somebody else. Now, to your question on why I'm targeted, I mean, I would briefly say your point is right. And, but I've actually honestly wondered, Harsh, why they're so bothered about me. I mean, I really wondered about it. It's like,
I asked the same question. I mean, I'm targeted, almost relentlessly, and I can't understand. All I'm saying is let's live together with love and respect.
Yeah.
And why is it something that makes you like? They call me a dangerous man, and I just can't understand how you're dangerous man. But
So, their definition of danger is very different from yours and mine.
Yeah.
But, I wondered why, right? And I think your point is right. And so, take Carnatic music. I mean, it's a niche art form practiced and celebrated by the caste elite of a certain region of India,
Right.
maybe max in the southern states. I'm a practitioner within that world. Now, why should this bother the RSS or the BJP? I can only find one explanation.
Right.
Okay. That Carnatic music is symbolic of something.
Okay.
For the RSS. It is symbolic of their puritanical
and the intellectual and cultural superiority.
Exactly. It's representative of their cultural superiority, and there's history to this. So you'll always find, for example, in any book on Indian classical music within quotes, anywhere, you can pick it up off the shelf and they'll tell you about how until the Mughals came to India, India had one classical music system. The Mughals came, it split into two. One was Carnatic and one was Hindustani. There can't be a more rubbish way of explaining this than that. But we've all been fed into this.
Okay.
Then they will tell you.
So what is the reality?
The reality is, first, there was no one classical system in this world. I've read the Nati Shastra. I've seen the Dattilam, which was 2 centuries before Common Era. There was no one. There were always multiple streams of what I would call elite music. Classical music is elite music. There were multiple streams. What was Marga? What was Deshi? These are very complex aesthetic questions that nobody has been willing to.
But it is that multiplicity that I think threatens the RSS most of all.
Right? Yes. So an homogenization of even that, or rather linearization of that, is convenience for them. Now, let's look at another part of it. So once it's split, what happened? You're then told that Carnatic music remained completely devoid of Islamic influence.
Okay.
This is other very important part.
But the Hindustani, we were got polluted.
You guys are all polluted. Okay? So you have that story happening. Right. So these are very important threads that have been created in our books, in our common knowledge that we have consumed. Now, so this is where the RSS comes in. Right. Carnatic music is a puritanical Hindu system. Now, you take, for example, somebody like Bhatkante. He's a very important person, or Paluskar. Both of them are important people in our conversation. So, Bhatkante and Paluskar both have an agenda in the late 19th century, sorry. Their agenda is we have to create one classical music, Indian music. They mean Hindu music. And they go about.
But was it like Tilak, who actually was a Hindu, was one of the first most powerful Hindutva leaders in a sense?
I think it was in a musical sense, but they didn't see themselves as political people. They saw themselves as people who were cleaning up the mess. Okay, but they went about it in two different.
Was the mess the Islamic influence?
Yes, for both of them.
Okay.
Now, interestingly, Paluskar says bhakti is the central part of Hindu music.
Right.
So, bhajans in what you hear now, for example, in Khayal concerts, is thanks to Paluskar. Till then they sang a Chota Khayal and a Bada Khayal. That's it.
Bhajans were not part.
No.
Okay.
Bhajans come from
Paluska.
Paluska's influence. Also, remember the Congress, all their meetings, Paluska was the Gandharva Mahavidyalaya. They were all very important part of singing tradition within the Congress meetings in the sessions.
Okay.
So that thread is happening. Bhattandi is a very interesting man because he is the intellectual. He says, you know what all these musicians are singing is completely wrong. And I look at the text, there's no connection between the Sangeeta Ratnakara and what these people, when he says these people, there are two communities. One, it is the Muslims. Two, it's the women, women
and the subaltern.
So what is the connection? So he says they have destroyed something that was incredible. So then where does he come to find treatises? He comes to Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
So in 1904 or something like that, he travels to Madras. He goes to Tanjore in search of what?
The purity.
Treatises. Everybody told him the intellectual hub is there. He didn't like the sound of Carnatic music. But everybody told him the books are there. So he comes, he meets this great scholar by name Subbarama Dikshitar in Chennai. He goes to Tanjore, he listens to Ghatam, he listens to Khayal in Tanjore.
Wow.
And then he says, I'm going to construct a theorization which revives this non-Islamic past, for which he uses treatises from the south. So the entire thought system that he comes about comes from what he picks up from one text called the Chaturdandi Prakashika, which he picks up in the city of Madras. So you can see what he's constructing. So you have these two people constructing aesthetic imageries that feed into Tilak's imagery, feed into RSS imagery, saying that there is this puritanical world. Fast forwarding to me now,
right?
That's the problem. That Carnatic music
that you're bringing back its impure elements.
Exactly. And also saying that there's always been multiple elements. I can tell you simple things. In Mridangam, they play a stroke known as the Faran.
Known as
Faran. Faran.
Okay.
These are like very fast strokes. It's not a Tamil word. It's not a Telugu word. It's an Urdu word.
Okay. Probably Persian or Arabic.
Arabic. Why? The Tanpura, where did it come from? There's no reference to the Tanpura till the 1400s and 1500s.
Okay.
The Tanpura didn't exist.
And you can't think of Carnatic music without the
No,
Tanpura.
you can't think of Indian music today, right? So, yeah, you can say the Ektara, we can make argument that there was a veena with one string. No, but it was not the same because the system was different. It came from where? From Persia, from that area.
Yeah.
So, there's a raga called Hussaini that we sing. Now, what word is that?
Yeah, okay.
Right. So, this idea that Carnatic music has not been influenced, by the way, is completely fraudulent. But it's been perpetuated.
And that's what you're fighting.
Yes. So, I mean, I think that's why my work is seen as, kind of muddying the waters.
Subversive.
Subversive and
Subversive it is.
Yeah, I agree too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's in a sense, it's democratizing the space of Carnatic music, which was always elite. I think.
Yeah, and I also think there's another part to it, right? It can't be a one-way traffic conversation. This is not an idea of saying of Carnatic music reaches. What about the other art forms, the forms that the Dalits practice? So there is also the notion of how we discriminate in terms of spaces occupied.
What is high art and low art?
Low art, and also
folk art. I find that.
I never use the word folk or classical.
It's extremely problematic.
Oh, it is very problematic because
when did Manipuri music dance become from a folk art into a classical?
So an explanation for this,
yes,
many years ago, was given by his no more dear friend called Harold Powers. He was one of the early people who came from the US, and a very naive younger me, when he came home, asked Harold, what's the difference between folk and the classical? It's very simple. When anything goes up the hierarchy of society, it moves from folk to classical.
Yeah,
and that, for me, was, I was much younger. I was like, wow. And then you start investigating these words and whether they have any aesthetic gravitas. Zero. So, I think this conversation of the arts, what has also threatened them is, like, for example, last year at the Music Academy, I mean, when I did the conference, I ensured that for the first time, there were discussions in the morning sessions about art forms that are practiced by marginalized communities. For example, there was an entire discussion, what we call Oppari music is basically Rudali, right? And there are multiple traditions of Rudalis in Tamil Nadu. So I had this incredible scholar, and
These are musical forms? Okay.
they sing, and there are songs, and they have meaning, and it's quite, and on what we could call a classical music stage. And I was attacked of saying I brought death to music. And so the other side is also a problem for them. So the idea is you don't not only democratizing this music, but allowing every other sound and color and palette of society
Entry into this hallowed space.
to these hallowed space is also a problem.
Right.
Both need to be very actively engaged with, or me singing Islamic verses in Carnatic ragas is also impurity, because when I sang on Allah or when I sang at a church, they were like, how could you do it? But they forget, in the church I sang on Kamakshi. In the church I sang on Jesus.
Right.
In the church I sang about Allah. But every one of these actions hits at, like you said, at the homogenizing core that they want to keep intact.
Hierarchical, homogenized.
Exactly.
core.
And each remain within their silos.
So I wanted to, I think in the fissures in Tamil society, we talked about, it somehow kept the anti-Muslim is in low key, but caste and anti-Christian violence is there. But there's also class.
Yes. Yeah, I think, going back to the class, this whole discussion about, say, that Kunganad, as we call it, or the Erode, Coimbatore, it's also a very feudal place. Extremely feudal. I mean, it is to the point of even me as a visitor, if I go to, say, any of that gathering, it's uncomfortable, the level of feudalness. So it goes together with caste. So caste and class, especially the feudalness, goes completely.
And it is those areas which are seeing this.
Those are the areas where you also see this happening.
Wow.
So we have to see them together. Right? I'm not saying feudalness doesn't exist in other parts of Tamil Nadu. I'm not even saying it. Yes, there is that mindset.
But it's a valorized kind of feudalism.
Yes. And it is further empowered. Right? And when that feudalism couples, and who are the feudal lords? They come within certain caste groups. So they couple themselves with a sense of authority and behavioral patterns that is justified. Then, right? This is the same problem with the world of art is in India.
Okay.
Right? Why don't we have so many, forget across art world, why don't we have enough artists speaking up? It goes back to the same feudal roots.
Okay.
So the art is all, especially within elite arts, right? The elite arts have always had the Maharaja, the Zamindar, then it became the politician and bureaucrat.
Right.
Then you have the corporation. They're all feudal lords.
Yeah.
And the elite are completely consider themselves at their mercy. Which is why artists in India, I mean, if you look at artists from margins.
There's no public funded art.
Absolutely. This is a tragedy of this country. Even, say, governmental support was only seen as in a feudal sense. The bureaucrats behaved like they were the zamindar, they still do, or they are the kings.
And now the ideology, I mean, now it's become even worse.
Coupled with that, right?
Yeah.
And also, this is where I think you always find artists from marginalized communities on the street telling you the most difficult things because they have no choice. They just have to do it. Only then we listen to them. Whereas I don't need to do that. I can very happily say, get my awards, get my money, and stay where I am. And which is why you find that really disappoints me. That the artists are an artist with power, artists with, they've sacrificed even the basic humanity through their silence.
Yeah. I was traveling in Central Asia recently, and I was really struck by the fact that the big statues that you see in country after country is of poets.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, they are the people, a city is known by its poets, and you have these statues. And they were poets of resistance, poets of transformation. I think we've stopped doing that. Or have we ever done it?
I think we've also lost.
The last poet we've celebrated is Rabindranath Tagore.
Tagore, absolutely. I don't think, I mean, in the South, yes, we have had Subramanya Bharati, and then we've had Bharati Dasan. We've had these people, but yet I will still say that we have not seen them as treasures and creative people who contributed to a larger ethos of a certain kind of humane living, and also being able, the thing that artists do sometimes, I mean, without them knowing, is they traverse so many divisions, and they blur divisions.
So there's politics and there's society. And
so, for example, Subramanya Bharati, you know, there's a very important spirit to Bharati, because I think one of the problems was the Dravidian movement, to a large extent, did not embrace him, because he was a Brahmin. He also wrote about Durga. He wrote about all these goddesses. Now that's so problematic, because now every December, I used to sing on Bharatiya's birthday, I think December 11th, if my date is right, at his house here. This is entirely taken over by the RSS ecosystem. The RSS now takes him on a palanquin every day on the streets. Now, we did that. I will not blame them. We were not willing to see the multitudes of shades of this man.
Right.
He was able to embrace, he was anti-caste. You know, he was fighting against the bigotry of his own community. Yet he said, I will celebrate the goddess. Yet he said, I speak about rationality. This traversing of things, the Dravidian movement was not willing to really accept. And now what has happened? He has now been completely appropriated. We don't know what to do. So we have failed in so many accounts like that.
You know, I wanted to, the time is passing in our conversation. I wish we had more time. But why is the Muslim not a hate figure in the Dravidian tradition?
It's an important question. I mean, are there issues? Of course there are issues. I mean, not that it's completely issueless. But I think it goes back to what we began in some way, is that there is a Tamil Muslim tradition. Okay. So the Muslims in Tamil Nadu, there is an entire Tamil. There are two. There is an Urdu Muslim tradition, but there's a strong Tamil Muslim tradition, right? And goes back to linguistic affinity and expression.
But that tradition, the Muslim in different states actually, I saw the Gujarati Muslim is completely Gujarati. I mean,
no, I'm not saying just I'm saying in terms of even religious practice.
Okay.
In terms of everything that goes into being a Muslim, there is an entire Tamil ethos that has been created. This goes back again for a long time. I mean, there was this film made by a friend of mine called Kombai Anwar, where he talks about the Tamil Dravidian Muslim identity.
Okay.
And it's not just in practice, it is also sometimes in construction. Some mosques look like a Dravidian temple. So there is this, for lack of another, syncretism that has happened.
But in what ways would you say, in concrete ways, does the Tamil Muslim practice differ from other forms of religion?
I may not know the details of it, to be very honest, but I know that there is a belonging that has happened because of that. And there is a seamless, like ritual practices, the sharing of, say, celebrations happen very easily because it is happening through the medium of language commonality and language affinity.
And music?
So music it's a very interesting point. So there has also been, if I may say one more thing, a huge Tamil Sufi tradition. I should not miss that. I forgot to mention that. So there's a Tamil Sufi tradition, which also has its roots in different parts of Tamil Nadu. For example, the city of Chennai, you have somebody called Kunnakudi Mastan Sahib, whose dargah is right in the north of Chennai, right? Now, he's a very interesting person. So, he is written about by this great scholar, U.A. Swaminathan Iyer, who was the one who, by the way, who found the Sangam manuscripts. If without him, we wouldn't have this conversation about the history of Tamil literature. So, Kunnakudi Mastan Sahib is celebrated in so many different sectors of society. The disenfranchised Dalit community, yes. He's also supposed to have done kirtanas. So which means he somehow talked to upper caste people. So there is also the Tamil Sufi tradition, which was very, very independently developing in Tamil Nadu. And I think all this has allowed, for example, an exchange between these communities, which has kept relationships largely fine, and also allowed for passages of rituals between communities. And I think that's what has kept us so far. Yes, there are some, again, going back to the Coimbatore belt, you will find some amount of issues, but otherwise, no.
The use of popular culture has been very central again to the RSS and its advancement. A recent book which I'm sure you encountered, Kunal Purohit's book on H-pop. I've not even had the sort of stomach to listen to some of those.
I heard some of them. I did.
They are so they're catchy and so hateful. So I've been looking more carefully then, and then talking to somebody like Akshay Mukul, the whole Gita Press story, it has entered virtually every Hindu home because it engages with their cultural and religious beliefs, and of course distorts their core essence, but it engages. So I'm just curious whether the RSS has succeeded in penetrating in the Tamil Dravidian space popular culture, and if not, why has it succeeded elsewhere?
To my knowledge, it has not succeeded. I have not, for example, encountered that kind of, I don't know what to call it music. I don't know what to call it. But, those kind of songs in the Tamil sphere, I have not encountered. They probably exist in some quarters, but I have not. And it has not become yet part of a popular culture. But there has been very caste-affirming, casteist songs that have been used by caste groups in Tamil Nadu. Again, we go back to caste as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. That has happened. For example, recently, there was this very famous film that we all grew up watching called Tevar Magan. Tevar is a caste. And in that, there was one song which celebrates the main protagonist, the main character rather, and calls him out as Tevar by caste. And Tevar is a very powerful caste group in Tamil Nadu. Now, apparently, after that movie had come out, which we were not aware of sitting, in the community events or weddings, the Tevar community used to blast that song in their street so that everybody else knew
that beware.
Beware, right? So that has happened in Tamil Nadu. This has not happened. No, it's to your question on why it has happened in other places. And again, we have a neighboring state like Karnataka, for example, right? Wherein you worked a lot in the coastal belt, and sometimes it's so different. And even Kerala, I mean,
which is which really amazes me. Which is why the Tamil story, I think, is so fascinating, because coastal Karnataka. I mean, just in passing, in this conversation. Coastal Karnataka, when we did have a hate crime tracker, then the government has forced it to be pulled off. We are at the process of building it up again. But when we did have the tracker, the district with the highest incidence of lynching and hate violence was Dakshin Kannada in the whole country.
I mean, you have to wonder one thing, right? That's also, to a large extent, the religious base of the entire Madhua tradition.
But it is also a Christian and Muslim area.
Yeah, I agree. But if you look at it, it is also.
But they were saying that
there is Dharmasthala, which is another, of course, there.
It is the
then there is also the Udupi. There is that entire. So
a certain Brahmin sect.
Exactly. I was going to say there is a certain that goes back to the intellectual, the Brahmin kind of command center, if you can call it that. Is that belt? And I wonder how much that is spilling over into action on the street.
I have been reading about why that area has and I've learned that it isn't a recent phenomenon. I mean, it is true that the ideas of love jihad and cow slaughter, etc., they used it as a laboratory. But there's been a long tradition for 100 years led by the Brahmin community there, which has brought us to this point.
Exactly, which is why I think that that's very different. But this, I mean, talking about our neighbors, and I am concerned about Kerala too.
Yeah.
I'm very, very concerned about what's happening in Kerala.
Kerala, the penetration is very visible to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I was there when the Ayodhya temple was being consecrated. That day I was in Kerala. I was astounded by seeing the streets. I mean, I was completely surprised. And these are not celebrations. These were assertions of something, right? These were,
they're very aggressive.
And very aggressive. And you could see it. You could see it in the visuals that were being put out there. And I was like, that's something we have to worry about. And I think that way the Tamil Nadu story so far.
Yeah. So, Krishna, I mean, we are closing our conversation. I wanted some last words from you. Just Tamil Nadu has, if you look across the country, has resisted the juggernaut of the RSS in a way that no other part of India, except possibly Kashmir within Jammu and Kashmir, though it has. There are lessons for the rest of India that we've spoken about in pieces. What would you say is the strength of the Dravidian movement that has created this kind of bulwark which is shaking, but still strong against the RSS, which in the organized left has failed to do, which the Congress has failed to do. What is it that Dravidian politics and social revolutions have succeeded? What are the lessons?
I think one huge lesson, one thing that we were able to do, is the strength of diverse political discourse, allowing that to be on the street. Okay, and from multiple voices. I think that is a very important aspect.
So could you elaborate that? Because we haven't spoken of this.
I think the idea, for example, which I say, if you go anywhere in Tamil Nadu, the political understanding and the courage to express that political understanding is largely there. Largely. With all the problems, it's still largely there. And this, it's a kind of an empowerment, right? And I think this, the Dravidian movement has been able to do. Whether they intended it or not, they did it. This, I think, is huge strength because this allows for exchange of ideas. It allows for contestations.
So you're saying democratizing political contestation. Would you say that?
I think that is, because that allows for contestations to play out in the public. It allows for pushbacks.
Without being threatened.
Yeah.
Without being repressed.
That is a very, I think that is, we forget how important that is, right? And how, and I mean in a public sphere. This is one. The other thing, I think, the strength of what rationality is.
Okay.
Right? I may disagree with Periyar with so many things, but you have to give it to this man. The strength of rationality. We forget one thing. Periyar was, there are 100 accusations against this man. But, Periyar always said, challenge me. Don't accept what I said. People forget he said that. He said, don't accept. You think for yourself. He told everybody, think for yourself. Use your brains. And then he went to many meetings of multiple caste groups and he will stand on their stage and tell them, you guys are casteist.
Right.
And he did this repeatedly over, 50, 60 years. There's another thing I want to bring. I know my answer is long-winded, but, people always say, Periyar was there, this happened, that happened, he was anti-Brahmin. I asked them one question. Was there ever an anti-Brahmin massacre in Tamil Nadu?
Yeah.
Never. So I ask a question, how? You had this huge, larger-than-life figure on stage using rhetorical language, using, really language that was
But he didn't other them as hate objects. He criticized a system, I think.
Yes, but he also said the Brahmins are this, the Brahmins are that. He said it. Let's say he did say it, not that he did not. But I want to know how the people receiving it did not get into one group and say, let's go to a cluster of Brahmin houses and burn them or lynch them. Please remember the percentage of Brahmins in the state is what, 2 or 1%, right? Yeah. It never happened. They will tell you 1 or 2 stray incidents of something. But if you keep that aside, 60 years, that's, I think, very, very important to notice, because then it goes back to saying what was the realizations of the people receiving his voice, receiving his thoughts. The realization was about resisting any form of oppression. And I think this resistance to oppression,
but not with individualized violence.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think this has been also something that has helped us resist. So now we don't need to talk about resistance in Tamil Nadu as something.
Yeah, it's something that we've practiced.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think all this helps. And RSS's notion of homogenization is straight away something that the Tamils will never accept.
They've not accepted homogenization with the rest of India, but they've not accepted homogenization within Tamil Nadu.
Absolutely, yeah. And this makes it very difficult for the RSS to, find a dialogue for them to propagate. I think these are the strengths. And I think, interestingly, one huge strength of Tamil Nadu, as much as I said is rationality, is also faith.
That's very interesting. And the combination of both are not in contradiction.
Exactly. And I want to say the strengths. The HRNC, which controls most temples, I think about 10 years ago when I asked somebody, they said it's about 35,000 temples under HRNC. Now it's probably double that. We have one of the greatest or the most beautiful temples of 1,000 years. Yes. You go to any temple, you have people across coming. You go to any church, you go to a mosque, you have people coming. And this, I went to Velangani, which is a very important Christian center, on a very auspicious day. It was thousands and thousands and thousands of Hindus, Muslims, Christians, just coming there, just doing their thing. Nobody. So this strength of faith is also something, this diverse strength of faith is also something that I think Tamils hold dear.
Very uniquely Indian form of faith is our biggest strength. And if someone asks me why I am still hopeful that we will overcome, it's this practice of an Indian. She might be Tamil, but she might be, from any part of the country. She'll come out of her home in a slum and she'll go down the road and she sees a mosque and she'll bow her head. Yeah. And then she'll go further, she'll see a church and she'll bow her head. Yeah. She sees a temple and she bows her head. I haven't met that woman anywhere else in the world. Yeah. And I think that probably is our biggest
So if you go to the coast, you're in Chennai, if you go to the coast and you meet the fisher, and you will see many of the boats. The boats will have a symbol of a local Sufi saint or an Islamic symbol. It'll have some goddess. It'll have a cross. Yeah. And the fisher will just pray. Yes. Yeah, that's it. And I have a very dear friend who's a fisher, and I use his quote a lot of times when he meets atheists. He says, "They don't believe in God?" He said, "No." He said, "Ask them to come to the seas with you."
Wow. Yeah. So I think I'm so grateful for this conversation. But what I hear from you is this combination of rationalism, of diversity, the space for diversity, but also faith in its diversities. And I think also the movement for social justice. Yeah. All of these coming together
absolutely
have formed a kind of bulwark against the RSS, which clearly even the left has not succeeded in doing. In Bengal, massive movement of communist cadres into the BJP is incredible.
Absolutely,
yes. It means that, I was in Germany, it's East Germany which has become the center of the neo-Nazis. So clearly, how we articulate our progressive convictions and live them requires a great deal of rethinking, and the Dravidian movement in some ways has done better.
Yes,
It's
I
not,
think so, yes.
It's not perfect, but it's done better in resisting the juggernaut of the RSS, which threatens, in my mind, everything that we hold precious about this land is threatened
Absolutely.
with this advent of the RSS, and we're sitting in one part of India where that resistance has been stronger than anywhere else. And thank you for being the voice for it, and a beautiful conversation.
Thank you very much, Harsh. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.